I got Fallout 4 on release, so why is it taking me until now to find the motivation to look into it? Let's find out! I like Fallout 4 well enough, but although it does many of the same things that Fallout 3 does, it hasn't sparked my imagination. I'm just unenthused by it. As before, the crumbling remains of civilization's wide-open wasteland world, this time Boston, is laid out for players to root around for clues of its disturbed post-apocalyptic history. It has its main questline, guild-like questlines, and side quests, just as Fallout 3 did, and New Vegas, and Skyrim, and Oblivion, and Morrowind, and Daggerfall. I wonder if Starfield will feature this setup as well. Is Bethesda just Bethesdaizing games in the same way that Jim Sterling suggests that Ubisoft Ubisofts, a combination of basic game building blocks concealed by whatever backdrop the developer chooses, albeit less frequently and without cramming junk like Uplay down our throats? Am I wasting my time waiting for the inner workings of these building blocks to develop towards some truly dynamic game mechanics, or are we destined to play the same game again and again and again and again and again and again, but a little prettier each time? Player enjoyment within these games is linked to their sense of wonder, disbelief suspended by a well-crafted world. When the boundaries and limitations of these worlds become apparent, that is, when consequences for actions feel immaterial, or when freedom is otherwise curtailed by shallow scripting or dialogue or mechanics, this sense of wonder fades, and goodness did it fade fast for me with Fallout 4. Though there isn't anything particular to point at and blame, beyond having played these games habitually since Daggerfall swept me off my feet over 20 years ago, and my general preference for fantasy settings over post-apocalyptic or steampunk ones. But I can try. I'm feeling grumpy after all. Yep, I'll do a bit of random pointing and blaming. That'll apply to all the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, I think, excluding the classic titles. 1. Experience playing Bethesda games mean that the boundaries and limitations of this formula are revealed to me, to the extent that I know to some degree how it will all proceed. The loot cycles, the visuals, the scale, and the tone and emotional impact of the questlines. Having an instinctual baseline understanding of the systems at play make it far tougher for Bethesda to rekindle that all-important wonder on the scale needed to commit the time that these vast games demand. It needs to offer up narrative surprises and be fluid and fun to play, which, 2. It's not very fluid to play. There is a systemic issue with Bethesda Game Studios' in-house creation engine, to my mind. The shortcomings inflicted by its engine make animations often feel faintly stilted, objects often feel floaty, probably because lighting often looks awry, and loading screens can fuck right off. Not only do these interrupt the flow of gameplay all too frequently, but they represent the severing of internal layouts from their external surroundings, making this a world without window views, without the contextual relationships between inside and outside that defines most decent architecture. This was forgivable in the cold climate of Skyrim, where it makes sense that windows would be small for heat conservation, and glass manufacture technology would be imprecise. And it was in 2011. It was still annoying though. Given that the world is now used to The Witcher 3, being unable to link loading and lighting and layout of internal and external cells just feels lazy. 3. Scale. Excluding Arena and Daggerfall, Bethesda games are necessarily set in toy places, given their engine limitations and given the time it takes to properly craft a world that isn't randomly generated. Populations for a given settlement number in the dozens if you're lucky. At a time in which many AAA games are open world, Bethesda must surely be looking to expand the scale of its projects to dwarf competitors like their games used to. 4. The last thing that comes to mind, mods. Mods are great, but they ensure that Bethesda games peak at least a year after launch, once the most vital contributions from talented modders have been made. This caused me to wait before I started playing Fallout 4 and then kind of forgot it. Not to mention that the installing and debugging of mods is not a fun process, and certainly a kick in the balls to immersion when things go wrong. Now that I have played it, I feel like I've played it before, and that I'm waiting for a dream game that'll never come, because the core elements are not developing in any meaningful way. They still might. They're putting an awful lot more time into TES 6 than they did into any previous Elder Scrolls title, so hopefully Todd Howard and co have something up their sleeve that'll progress the underlying technology behind the scenes of that series. I award Fallout 4 a better game engine and Genolite rust remover. Bye bye.